All right, guys, we are live, coming to you live from San Diego, California on a Thursday. Today we're talking about Airbnb, a staple in the gig economy. I have a guest and my brother, Matt, on the training with us today, going over beginner's guide. Matt, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to it.
So guys, Matt is based in my hometown, in our hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me know that we're coming through okay, guys. We're doing a Google Hangouts here today. We are doing a beginner's guide today. If you're interested in Airbnb, again, one of the staples in the gig economy, really the original kind of gig economy, if you think about it. This is a beginner's guide. It's not meant to be a complete mastermind deep dive, but if there's good reaction, good engagement, and you guys like these kind of streams about Airbnb, we'll definitely do some more. As the title talks about, it's how you can really make $1,200 to $1,500 a month on Airbnb. Now, of course, there's no earnings guarantees. The numbers and the figures talked about in this live stream are not meant to be earnings guarantees. Your earnings will certainly vary, but if you're new to Airbnb, this is going to be a good jumping off point and a nice beginner's guide training. So let's jump right into it. I appreciate Matt being here from Pittsburgh, PA. We're going to ask some introductory questions here, guys. And really, we're just going to go down from the intro to Airbnb to his background hosting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's done really well hosting in Pittsburgh, PA. So I'm going to jump right into it, guys. Make sure you post in the live chat right now if you're watching this in the rebroadcast. Let me know where you're watching from. Have you looked at Airbnb? Are you a current host on Airbnb? Let me know in the comments. Emma Silverhammer, thanks for being here. So I guess really, Matt, I'm going to turn the conversation over to you. Tell me about your background with Airbnb, how it caught your attention. I guess really, how long have you been doing it, let's say?
Right. Well, I started in May of last year, and like you talk about on your channel, we know how much time, I guess you could say, things like Uber and Lyft and Postmates and all those things sometimes can take. And it's fun because obviously we drove, in Pittsburgh, and we've had experiences doing those kind of side hustles. So I was just interested in something that required less of my time. So anybody who has a piece of property and who's able to do so, and we can talk about what that means, able to do so later, I assume, but I wanted to give it a shot. So I was looking for something to maybe make more money with less of my time. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, I think everyone's looking for that, something where it's more automated, where I can kind of set it and essentially forget it. And real estate and Airbnb, it really lets you do that, because if you think about, renting out a property, you essentially get it ready, and then you're profiting off of letting someone simply stay and use your property. So your hands are completely away from the use, or the person just stays and they take advantage and they use your property. Things like that.
Very good.
Yep.
So guys, again, Matt's been doing this for 10 months in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has a lot of success with it. So tell me, what exactly are you, and guys, if you don't know what Airbnb is, just in 10 seconds here, it allows you to, in essence, rent out your property. And we're going to talk about some of the maybe legal considerations of that, because it does vary across the country, of course, and we're strictly focusing this conversation in the United States. So what exactly are you listing for Airbnb in Pittsburgh?
Right. So I have a residential home, and I think if you look on Airbnb, there's different, there's different spaces you can rent, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but you can rent like a single bedroom. You can rent a couch in your living room, which, it's pretty crazy. I mean, essentially, if you have the space and you're comfortable doing it, you can rent it. So I rent out a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom entire house. So that gives the guest obviously access to everything in the home, and then a parking space and a garage and some yard space, in my area. Yep.
Yeah, very good. So again, guys, Matt is renting out a single family home, detached home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. M. Silverhammer, Still City driver, travel with Aaron. I see you guys in here. Thanks for being here. And M. Silverhammer does mention, again, some legal and sometimes problems that certain communities, states have, what have you. So do make sure that if you're interested in Airbnb, you do the research on your local or state requirements. Again, this is meant to be kind of a high-level overview of how to host. So Matt, tell me, what is your, I know guys in the gig economy, we're all used to having some kind of rating. What's your Airbnb rating and how many listings have you done?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say real quick, if you have questions about your city, you can go on the Airbnb website, and I think almost every state has its rules. Like for instance, San Diego or Pittsburgh or what have you, they're gonna kind of give you the basics. So I just want to call that out real quick.
Oh, they put all those resources out there easily, so everything's accessible. Very good.
Yeah, it's you just sort it by, it's sorted by state. You find yours, and it's going to tell you everything you need to know. Honestly, so I think I've had. Let me see here. I've had quite a few ratings. My rating, and I love to talk about ratings. I've had 31 ratings. Wait, I've had 26 ratings on my entire home, because I used to rent out like one bedroom. I didn't really like that. You make more money doing the whole space. I have a 4.6 out of 5, and we can talk about that. There's some things that I wish I knew when I started that I know now, but you kind of learn as you go. But I've had probably over 150 guests, and like Mike said, I've done this for 10 months. And just to give you guys a number, because I'm sure you're interested. I mean, this is what I made last year. So a little over like 10 grand in, from May to December. And so yeah, so that's my rating. That's how many people I've had in. Mostly people come on the weekends, but that's kind of the traffic to expect. And that's the kind of money that you can make. And it's kind of like what he said. On average, I'm doing about $1,300 a month, but you can get way more aggressive with that. I mean, I just do this on the side, but if you get a little more flexible with your weekday prices, I mean, you can make probably double that, honestly.
And we're talking, just to clarify, guys, we're talking about revenue, obviously, like everything in the gig economy, independent contractor work, that is pre-tax, correct?
Right. And I mean, if you're able to just rent it out, and you don't have a cost, like for instance, you can charge somebody like $350 for one night. I mean, that's the kind of rate that you can ask for, depending on really your location. A lot of people came in for sports games, so you just have maybe a group of 4 or 5, split that. And some people like the privacy of Airbnb, so you can charge that much money. And then I would go stay actually at a cheaper Airbnb and then pocket profit. You know what I mean? But if you're able, obviously, if it's a property that is a rental, then you're pocketing all of that revenue essentially as profit, right? But there's operating costs and all those things to maintain it. So
sure. And I'm actually curious if that Airbnb stay on your part while you're renting out your home as an Airbnb, I'm wondering if that's in part tax deductible. That'd be a question for your CPA, of course. That's interesting. Hey, I got a question for you. A lot of these companies, well, every company takes a commission from using their platform. How does the commission structure work for Airbnb?
Right. I have to honestly go. I think I want to say it's 10%. I mean, what did I know we talked about it previously. I'm blanking though.
Yeah, guys, we don't want to get you wrong information, so we'll do a breakdown of the earnings because again, it may vary. Let's get back to you on the earnings here. Well, I wanted to touch on one other part about kind of an intro here. So we had some questions about what exactly you can list and who can list. So who can list, I guess, on Airbnb, and what exactly can they list?
Right. So anybody can list an allowable space. So for instance, if you live in a condo or maybe a more restrictive city, you have to, again, look on the Airbnb website and they'll tell you kind of the limitations. Obviously, this is a new type of service, newer. So sometimes there's no rules in place. It's kind of like when Uber and Lyft started. I mean, it was kind of like the Wild West. But there are some limitations if you live in a condo, etc. But for the most part, if it's your property, even if you're still paying on your mortgage, right? So you're not like technically the owner, but you finance the home. If you want, I've stayed in places where they sublet, so they've been students. And again, you have to kind of know what's allowable, but that's a possibility too. So, if we have, there's a lot of colleges around my area, and I would, the students would go away for the holidays or the summer, and then they would sublet essentially through Airbnb. So there's a lot of ways to kind of like get people in there. But you can list one bedroom, like I said, you can list the entire place. As much as you can list multiple bedrooms in your house, but not the entire house, right? So you can close off, let's say, your room, your master bedroom or whatever, and then list any other bedrooms as single unit, rentals.
Yeah, that's great. I hear some strategy in there, guys. If you didn't pick up on that, what Matt just said is it sounds like there's a lot of demand based on seasonality. It kind of makes me think of these platforms that surge. So, what's the minimum you can list? What's the maximum you can list for? Because it sounds like you can be smart with this business and you can, in essence, kind of have, I guess, surge pricing of your own. You can set your own price for those higher demand times, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because for instance, okay, if you live near a city or near a resort or any attraction, and it's let's say you live by the beach or whatever it might be, if people travel to your area, so for instance, Pittsburgh, a lot of people come here for sports games. So I know during football season, I can charge nearly $400 a night. It's crazy. I think the most I did in a month was like $2,500 or whatever. But I mean, that's a pretty good margin. And obviously, if you have more bedrooms, you have more bathrooms, you can charge even more. But yeah, so you 100% choose your own price. The lowest price is $10. The highest price is $10,000. So nobody's going to charge that, but you get my point. So if it's I was going to say Steeler game. If it's a football game, if it's New Year's Eve, if it's Christmas, if it's whatever, if it's summertime and you live by the beach, go in there and manually increase the rates. Friday, Saturday nights are always more money for you. Weekdays are going to be less money. And like Mike said, busy times of year to help you out. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of earnings potential for those kind of. Again, it reminds me just like these search platforms that. And keep in mind, guys, that when you charge a premium, let's say for your Airbnb, that's a premium, but people are looking for premium. That you have clientele that will pay those higher rates, and they're happy to. And that's kind of a double-sided reward because you get more profit for that weekend or that night. And it looks like you can really charge any amount that you want, upwards of $10,000. I'm sure if you're renting out an entire mansion, let's say, that's pretty cool. So I know the big question for everyone, and the big question in the title is earnings. So how much should someone hosting on Airbnb, let's say for hosting, because you mentioned hosting an entire house. Let's say if you're hosting, let's say just keep it simple, a detached single family home. What should they expect for, again, this isn't earnings expectations, but what's a general guideline for earnings?
Right. So I think you need to look at your situation and kind of like what I said. And I told you my numbers. So for instance, I'm 10 minutes away, 10, 15 minutes away from downtown and all the sports stadiums and all that stuff. 3-bedroom, 1 bath in a residential area. Okay. If you live in a more popular area, my house is, pretty standard, nothing fancy. And with all of that, I did 1,300 a month. And if you're okay, and I think what some of your viewers might think is, well, I can't rent out my entire house because I need somewhere to stay as well, or I don't feel comfortable with, giving the keys over entirely. You know, on average, you could probably do like $40 to $80 a day. But again, keep in mind, if you want to try it out, so if you want to do what I did, and I just tried it out just to maybe you just want to save up money for vacation. The cool thing is, like Uber, you can turn it on and off. So your listing's on, then it's you can be done with it. So you can rent out your entire house to try it. You can go on vacation, right? You can go on vacation and rent out the entire house and then be done with it if you want. But I did 1,300 a month. You can charge way more money than that if you have more bedrooms, more bathrooms. I mean, more money is not unreasonable if you live in, a bigger city. Honestly, if you live in like a San Diego or New York City, or whatever it happens to be, I mean, where rent is higher, you can go way up there.
And how many nights do you think, like an estimate for that 1,300?
That's a good question. Probably that's probably like 8 to 10 nights.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's really
good.
good. It's really good, and just keep in mind, it's primarily going to be on the weekends, right? I mean, that makes sense because that's when people travel. But it's amazing because I remember we were on vacation last year, and I was making money on my vacation, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So if you're leaving town and you want to try it out, I mean, I'm 100% for just giving it a shot, because essentially you're having somebody pay for your vacation, which is amazing. But again, you have to be comfortable with it. But I've had many guests, and it's like with Uber, 99.9% of them are amazing, respectful.
And yeah. I believe there's a double-sided rated system, just like Uber. Do you rate the guests as well?
Right. And so, okay, so whenever you're driving Uber or whatever, you want to know, that it's like a two-way thing. You want to know, okay, essentially you want some protection, right? So you're probably wondering, well, like, I don't want to let anybody into my house, right? I mean, there might be some concern. So you can set the limitations. You can require them to send you a message to kind of explain why they need your house, or you can ask them some questions. You can get as detailed or as hands-off as you want. You can require that they have, Airbnb has 3 different requirements, I believe. A government-issued ID, like an email address and a selfie or something like that. You can add more layers of security. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
You did. I'm not sure if you maybe already mentioned this, but, and you may not know this, and that's okay. But if I wanted to limit how many guests they had, or if they, I wanted to make sure they didn't have a house party, can I limit the guest number?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, you can. So if you're comfortable, yes. So you can limit it to like whatever number you want. Okay. But if you are okay with a maximum of, let's say, like 7 or 8 people, or 5 people, you can charge additional. You can ask for an additional charge for each person after, let's say, 2 people. So I do like $10 for every person after 2 people. And then in your house manual, you can say, no illegal substances, quiet hours after 9 or 10 p.m. or whatever. I say, just to kind of protect yourself, leave the house as you found it, which means, to me, don't remove anything, right? Because that's just a natural concern. At least it was for me initially. But like I mentioned, 99% of people are amazing. You have a few, they don't clean up the dishes or something like that. But right. Yeah, you could limit the number of people.
And I'm sure that it's pretty much common sense to either take the valuables with you or have them under lock and key, I would imagine.
Yeah,
because you never know.
yeah, that's the thing. And again, you can lock a bedroom. You can rent out 1 or 2 bedrooms. If you do rent the entire space, I would recommend all your tax information, or just put it in a cabinet, and that'll pretty much protect you.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. I was going to ask about, because I think everyone's going to want to know this. And guys, by the way, this is a high-level beginner's guide to Airbnb. Let me just take a time out right now. If you guys are enjoying the content on this live stream, and if you like the content here on the channel, can you please consider leaving a like on this live stream? It shows us that you get value in the content that we provide here. It gets more eyes on the channel, more people on the Your Driver Mike team, and of course, since we're here on YouTube, it boosts us in YouTube's almighty algorithm. If you haven't done so already, please consider leaving a like. I did have another question, and I wanted to talk to the audience here for a second. Being a high-level live stream, if you guys want to see more in-depth live streams, also make sure to leave a like on this live stream and post it in the comments below. If you want to see Matt and I go over a deep dive on safety, on earnings breakdowns, on a kind of preparedness kit on what you need to do to prepare your listing, definitely let us know. We can do a lot more of these Airbnb live streams. So Matt, I was going to ask you about kind of what everyone I'm assuming is wondering. Have you had any best, worst parts about listings? Can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, the pros and the cons?
Right. So that's definitely a big question, I think, for a lot of people. So like I said, it's kind of with anybody that's done like a gig, an Uber or a Lyft or a DoorDash. I'm sure you understand 99% of people are great. Then you're going to have maybe some outliers or something. So the best situation you can ask for, and which happens typically, is you go back to your house and you don't even realize that somebody was in it, which is amazing, because simply for going on vacation or staying somewhere else, or you just made some money, and all you did was open your doors and host someone who needs a place to stay. These are families, these are students, these are just people traveling across, doing a road trip, things like that. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, obviously, is if they damage something or if they disrespect the property. So I had a group that caused some damage in my house, and it's very aggravating, because for maybe you and I, it's common sense, right? Like, why would you do this to someone's property? This is my property. This is my house. I would never treat someone's house this way. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But somebody in my home left cigarette butts just in my basement. There was random clothes left behind. If you can imagine that, really odd. A ton of trash kind of built up in the kitchen, plates everywhere. And it was a mess. So I had to open up, and I'm sure maybe I'm getting ahead of the questions, but I had to open up a resolution ticket where you're basically requesting, compensation for things that they did. So, I mean, definitely a nightmare, but you are protected under, there's an Airbnb host guarantee. It's probably a longer conversation for another time. But if you're interested, you can go online. There's a lot of things in place to protect the host. But I mean, worst case scenario, they're going to have a good time. And, I had a few people not leave. So what if they don't leave? I mean, and I just want to say, I've had 150, a good amount of people in the home. When they don't leave, it's typically because they slept in or they didn't meet. Like some people, they travel because they're going to, they're celebrating something, and they go out and they hit the bars and they have a tough time waking up, and it's your job as a host to let Airbnb know, and they'll take care of it. But for the most part, it's been super amazing, and haven't had any problems. So
yeah, you kind of compare it, and we compare it to most things in the gig economy where you're interacting with the public. You're going to have for the most part people that are respectful, especially if they're you would think renting an entire house, and it sounds like that's the case. Certainly, guys, there is a risk to this. There always has been when someone's done anything like, a house rental. So, but it does sound like for the most part, you are protected. Remember, you're going to obviously protect your valuables. You're backed by Airbnb, of course, and you have some resources there as well. But we won't pretend that is a flawless system, as Matt mentioned, but for the vast majority of guests, it can be handled, certainly. I was going to ask about damage or theft, but you did mention a little bit about being protected from Airbnb. So I guess for anyone interested in, and guys, we're going to do a question and answer session here shortly. Let us know in the live chat, or if you're watching the rebroadcast, we still answer those questions. Post those right now in the live chat or the comment section. But if someone's new to Airbnb, firstly, if you guys do want to sign up for Airbnb, there is a sign up link in the description. That is Matt's affiliate link to sign up for Airbnb. Definitely check it out and sign up if you are interested in listing. But Matt, for those that are interested in getting started with Airbnb, what tips do you have? Because everyone wants a smooth listing. What tips do you have for a smooth listing?
Right. So it's less complicated than you might think. Your house needs to be clean, but not immaculate. People are looking for the basics. So they're not looking for the Ritz-Carlton. They're looking for some clean sheets and a place to shower and go to sleep, honestly. I definitely recommend having Wi-Fi. Who doesn't have it? But if you don't have it, you should probably get it. And honestly, I just want to say the one thing I mentioned earlier, the one thing I wish I knew when I started that I know now, people are really particular. I know this is going to sound counterintuitive, when I said it doesn't have to be immaculate, but if it is dirty, they're going to notice. So, and what I mean by that is, if you have maybe, part of your home that's, you have a broken shower head or whatever happened, you have a leaky faucet, or, some people are pretty particular. Make sure you have clean sheets. Make sure you have a pillow for each person who will be sleeping there. That's a requirement. Airbnb has some basic requirements, 1 towel per person, things like that. But it's very straightforward. Just clean beds, place to shower. That's essentially all they're looking for. An easy check-in. So if you don't have it, a smart lock, a keypad lock, where because a lot of the time someone might be on a road trip and they're getting in at like 9 p.m. And if this is a strictly rental property, maybe you don't want to go back to the property to let them in. And it's not very professional to leave a key under the carpet for them, right? So you can have a lockbox. I have a lockbox on one of my doorknobs, and they just put in the code, the box opens up, and there's their key. But I would recommend a lockbox, a smart lock where they just plug in a digital code to let them into the home. And that's all you need to do. Cleanliness, the basics that you get in a hotel, like soap and things like that, and easy communication and easy method to check into the home.
Yeah, those are some power tips, guys. Some power tips. Definitely rewind the stream if you missed that later on. Those are some power tips for a smooth listing. And I mean, you can think of it that hey, we all live in our homes. If you're a homeowner or wherever you live, really. We live in these spaces, so I guess it is, kind of tough when maybe you have some normal wear and tear, but your guests are going to expect basic standards. And hey, guys, as you can see here, we did get a super chat. Shout outs to Tom for the $5 super chat, taking over the Phillips Hue here. Again, really appreciated, Tom. Thank you so much for the super chat. So as we move into Q&A here soon, I did have a few more questions. You mentioned a little bit about prepping the space. Is there any other tips you can give on, I guess, prepping your space, things that maybe you wouldn't think of purchasing or supplying in your home? Again, you mentioned on a few, but I want to see if you have any other tips on setting up your space.
Yeah. So I can tell you so I mentioned I stayed at other Airbnbs, and whenever I rented out my home, I'll tell you some of the best ideas that other people had that I saw, because I loved it. You found your own kind of favorite Airbnb places to stay whenever you rented out your home. So I saw probably dozens of Airbnbs. The best ones, I might steal this tip, but they had laminate instructions on nearly everything. It wasn't overboard, but for the TV, they said, this remote turns it on, this remote, powers the DVD player. They said, I think, just simple things. If you use dishes, please wash them. And that was like in the kitchen, right? Maybe you have an air conditioner unit. You could say, simple, something like, please turn this off when you leave. And then by the exit, please leave keys in the bowl before you exit. Something like that. So, and because people sometimes, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, they forget. And it's not their fault, but they just forget. So if you have small little reminders, throughout your property, that's good if you want to do that. You can also put little instructions. The questions I get the most when someone's staying is there anything within walking distance that I can go to, like a bar or a restaurant? So you can put a little, you could type up something, best places within 5 minutes, something like that, or local secrets that you need to see. I know this all sounds very clickbaity, but no, just make it simple. Say best places to visit in your city, and then put your favorite places that maybe people traveling, they're not going to know of. So just simple stuff like that, and they'll appreciate it. Yeah, you can put out free coffee. I give out free K-cups, just something simple, and just little things like that.
Yeah, I think those are massively value-added tips right there. Again, definitely something that if someone's looking at starting hosting for Airbnb, I wouldn't even think about, especially the signage. I definitely think that's a good tip. For instance, for your property, you're looking at adopting that kind of strategy because, like you said, if you think about it, maybe out of sight, out of mind, or people just don't know, right? We all live differently. We all have different, ways of doing things. So, and I also think of it as, if you think about it, it's kind of another subtle reminder that you are using someone's house and that there is someone that is overseeing this. And honestly, there are some rules or some regulations. And it's a subtle reminder that, hey, you're in my space, and I would please, if you want to, if you could wash the dishes, etc.
I just wanted to add, I 100%, something I did from day one is get a security camera. And I've actually used this whenever I mentioned guests who maybe slept in. I have a security camera, and of course you need to disclose to people. It's probably best, in my opinion, that my camera points to my entrance and my driveway. So I see when people check in, and also I see when they leave. So if somebody sleeps in, I can screenshot it with a timestamp, and I can prove to Airbnb, hey, this person didn't leave yet. And again, that's a rare circumstance. It really is. But you can at least see on your phone, okay, they did in fact check in, they're at the house. It gets you more aware of what's going on. And then you want to disclose there's a security camera. It is not recording audio. It's simply for security, pointed outside of the house. And that's my opinion. I think, if you want a security camera inside of your house, that's probably up to your discretion. I probably wouldn't do it. But, I would definitely recommend, you can get an indoor, security camera on Amazon. They're not expensive. And you can see updates on your phone. It's probably the best thing that I ever bought because it feels like you're at your house, but you're not.
Yeah, those are more power tips. And I definitely agree that, guys, if we talk about rideshare driving, the number one accessory that I recommend for rideshare, and a lot of you guys echo this, is getting a dash cam when you're driving for rideshare. Matt just recommended an outdoor security camera. I think that's a must. In fact, we're going to link Matt's recommendation, the camera that he uses, later down below in the description. So look for that if you want the same setup that he has. No, I kind of agree with you that there has to be some level of trust when hosting. Frankly, your guests don't want to feel like they're on Big Brother, right? There's cameras in every single room. They're there as a guest, and Holiday Inn doesn't have cameras in the rooms. There's some trust there, and there's going to be an exchange of trust and liability. You're assuming some liability in exchange. You're giving them some privacy and the rental of that space. That's what they're looking for. Now, legally, Can you have a camera in there? This is not meant to be legal advice, so you'd have to check on that. It is your private space, but again, we're not going to make any legal claims to that. But I do certainly agree that a camera inside, while I understand the premise, I understand the security, it may be a little bit invasive to your guests here. So guys, I do want to move to question and answer. I'm going to forward some questions to Matt here. Again, we'll do our best in answering your questions here. So firstly, we do have some questions, guys. Post your questions right now in the live chat. Anything about Airbnb, we'll do our best. And again, let us know if you want to see more Airbnb strategy sessions here. So first question is, and I don't know if this is a thing, but can you give ratings or reviews to your guests that would prevent you guys from being able to work together in the future? For instance, I think it's on Lyft. If you rate your passenger 3 stars or lower, Lyft will ensure that you can no longer match. Do you know if there's anything like that on Airbnb?
Your rating can affect their ability to use Airbnb, right? So if you're a passenger for rideshare and you dip below a certain amount, you're in jeopardy of not having that privilege of using the platform. I don't know if you can request.
Is there a deactivation threshold for your guests if they get?
Yeah, there is. Well, for your guest and for a host. So, for details on, but there is. I mean, that's the short answer. I think for a host, you want to be above like a 4.5, something like that. And just keep in mind, it's a learning process for me too. So, I think I got my ratings are all pretty much 4.8. And they break it down from how accurate was your listing to the location to how easy was your check-in. Would you recommend this host? So I guess to address your question, whenever you rate somebody, you can say, would you recommend this guest? And if you click no, there might be something in there that prevents that person from renting your space. And here, I'll give you an example. So for the group that I had that damaged my home, I told Airbnb I don't want to host these folks again. So there's amazing communication with customer service. They give you a case manager. They call you, and it's very easy. But I guess to answer your question, as far as I know, they can lose their privileges, and I've done it where I request I don't want to host these folks again because they were disrespectful. Things like that.
Right now, so I'm kind of thinking, if somebody were to book your Airbnb, does that go through you for approval first, or is it automatic?
Yeah, you can either set it where it's automatic, or you can set it where you have to approve it first.
Right. So guys, this kind of reminds me of the Toro platform, where you can rent your personal vehicle as a rental car, and Toro has the same kind of thing. You can set it up for automatic approvals. That allows you to get business a lot faster. If someone wants to rent your car in an hour, then it's automatically approved, because you may be busy. You can't always check on approvals. So it's a similar scenario there. That makes sense. Now, so Tom was asking that question. So it seems like if you set up approvals, that could be a good kind of security gate. So if you happen to see the same people pop up to try to rent your space, I'm assuming you can decline that.
Yeah. Oh, and so here's what the review looks like. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I'm sorry. I apologize for this. But it says review this person's stay. I know that. So you can, whenever they request to stay with you, this is for a new guest or maybe somebody who's stayed at your property before. If you set your regulations where you have to approve it, there's a button that you can select, I don't feel comfortable hosting this guest. And it's, we can get in a whole conversation about that, but I've requested to stay at someone's, home, and they've declined me. And it's strange because you say, you write your message, you say, hey, this is my reasoning for requesting your space, and they decline you. You're like, well, why are you declining me? They have the option to simply say, I don't feel comfortable hosting you. But here's the thing, okay? Why, So Airbnb wants to make sure it's a fair platform. Okay. So the only thing you're going to see is their message. You're not going to see a picture. You're not going to know who it is aside from a name, the number of guests, and their message. But if for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable, yeah, you can decline that right away.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And it sounds like there's double-sided protection from Airbnb, both protections for guests and protections for hosts.
You will see their rating as well. So if they have a low rating, like, right, we're driving rideshare, and let's say someone has a dreadful rating, I mean, it's not going to get you that excited to accept. So same thing with Airbnb. And like I said, honestly, 99% of people have amazing ratings, and they have, you know, perfectly suitable reasonings and messages for requesting your space. So.
Yeah, very good. So a few other questions we did answer, kind of. A-Rob, thanks for being here. A-Rob asked what happens if they destroy the house. We did kind of go over some of the protections that Airbnb has, reporting systems, what have you. I don't know if we've specifically talked about insurance, but what type of insurance is Airbnb covering?
I just want to say on that last question, the last thing on that question is you can report a profile. So if you go into someone's profile, I know you can't see that, but you can report somebody for various reasons. You know, they're being offensive, or you can type in your reasoning. As far as insurance goes, I know that you're covered up to $1 million in damages. You know, thankfully, even with the damages that I've had, you know, there wasn't any structural damage, you know, and again, you know, I've had enough guests, I think, to kind of sample what your experiences might be. I think at worst, hopefully, it's just going to be some small messes that, you know, things like that. But yeah, you are covered up to $1 million. It doesn't replace your homeowner's insurance. They make that very clear. But they make it to where if the Airbnb guest does damage your property, then you're covered essentially under their supplemental policy, I guess. But again, there's some, we can probably link, you know, in the description or things like that. But there are resources on Airbnb. That's a big concern for a lot of hosts. That's a good question, though. I mean, that's everyone's like concern, but you know, again, it's very rare in my experience.
And I'm sure that insurance is probably one of the top, I would imagine, 3 questions, along with safety and legality. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that Airbnb has tons of resources on their website for insurance, and as you mentioned, there's a legal section on there as well, so we can certainly link that down below in the description as well. Do you think it would be advisable if there are damages? I mean, guys, those of you that drive rideshare will remember kind of a cleanup fee, and there still is a cleanup fee if someone gets sick in your vehicle. And what we always recommend is you take pictures of the mess, as unfortunate as that is, before you would clean it up, or maybe you don't clean it up, maybe you have to get it professionally done, but you do take pictures. So do you recommend that you also take pictures, I guess, you know, documentation, right, of maybe valuables, or especially after there may be damage?
Right, 100%. So I just looked on their main page. If you download the app, it says, do I need insurance? There's a whole section there. Just click learn more, and it'll go over a lot of the concerns there. And as far as, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I distracted myself.
Do you think it's a good idea to take pictures to document like damage, or maybe even before?
Thanks. Sorry. So I think it's a good idea for your purposes. You can just do a quick video walkthrough. They suggest this for typical
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Insurance policies, right? Because if you say, well, I just lost the TV, they're going to be like, okay, well, you know what I mean. Just, you can do a quick, doesn't have to be super detailed. If you have a disrespectful guest, take pictures before you clean up, because you will file a claim in the resolution center. The guest has 3 days to respond to you. So here's what I would recommend. I had somebody, I didn't mention that group that caused damage. Somebody got sick in my bedroom. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, there was some dots on the carpet, disgusting. So I got a quote from a carpet cleaning company who came, cleaned it up perfectly fine. You know, that stuff comes right out of your carpet. Hire a professional. So, you know, if you're concerned about somebody spilling or staining your carpet, hire a professional, comes right out. So I said, hey, here's my bill. I screenshotted it. I took pictures of the carpet and I put that all in my claim. I said, $200. Here's the stain. This was not here prior to your stay. And I'm simply looking for reimbursement of the cost. And I was the guest immediately paid for it. And if they don't respond, Airbnb, they don't respond 3 days, Airbnb will step in, they'll contact that person. And if you take pictures, you know, like get an estimate from a contractor. Hey, they broke, you know, whatever. They put a hole in my wall. Just get a quick estimate, screenshot it, you know, do that. Yeah. So it'll be, you know, there's a lot of ways to protect you as a host.
Right. Yeah. You want to protect your asset, which is your Airbnb listing. Obviously, definitely. That's a good tip. And I think, you know, if you want to go completely gung ho, you could do a video walkthrough before each guest. You know, you can do a time, you can do a date, announce that in the video, or show some kind of proof, a newspaper, what have you, to have the most current walkthrough or recording. But at the very minimum, yes, absolutely, take any kind of documentation. And I think those guests will know that, especially when presented with evidence, pictures, or a video, and they know what happened, right? Or hey, maybe they don't. Maybe they partied too hard and they don't remember what happened. But I think that they'll know when presented with evidence that they know that if they push back and they try to maybe hide that damage, that they're ultimately going to lose. That Airbnb has your back. You know, they want, you know, the hosting community is the cornerstone of their community. You know, they don't want to lose a host in these markets, and they're certainly looking out for their hosts with insurance and those safety measures like you mentioned. Absolutely. Well, guys, again, feel free to post any other questions in the live chat or in the comment section down below. I don't see any questions right now in the live chat, so I think we're going to wrap it up. If I don't see anything else pop in here. So a big takeaway, guys, a lot of power tips, beginner's guide over Airbnb. Again, I want to thank my brother Matt for being here, streaming live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, myself coming to you live from San Diego, California. A lot of power tips. Again, thanks to Matt for coming out here. Matt, tell me one power tip off the top of your head to succeed with Airbnb. Maybe something you haven't mentioned, but can you think of one last power tip for anyone interested in hosting?
Right. I would say give it a shot around the biggest kind of event in your area. Just try it, because that would be my tip, honestly. And here's the thing. I would honestly say try it, because if you're considering ride share or anything like that, it always, you know, it's a little strange at first, but in my experience, like I've said, 99.9, all these things we're talking about, is very rare that you have a negative experience. You will be amazed. I'm amazed, because I mean, for right now, you know, I'm actually staying with my girlfriend, you know, for a few nights a week. So I literally can set up my home for an Airbnb guest, and I'm making money by simply staying somewhere else. If you're going on vacation and you want to kind of give it a shot, you know, try it out, because you'll be on vacation, you'll see a request come in on your phone, and you're like, wow, we just made $500. Like, you know, it's an amazing thing. So, you know, I know it's a little, you know, it's a little different, but, you know, like Mike said, I mean, it's a huge opportunity. You make, you know, really, you know, in my opinion, you make some great money if you're trying to save up, if you're trying to, you know, maybe you have that in-law suite that you're not using, right? You know, and it's a great way to control. You can also control who stays there and things like that. So I don't know if that's much of a tip for you to just give it a shot, but, you know, I think, you know, if you have a clean place, you know, if you provide the basics, you know, you take some good pictures. I guess that would be my advice. I mean, you know, in my opinion, I mean, I want to have a 5 out of 5 rating, right? But people still book my place. My February is almost booked. You know, for, you know, almost every single day on the weekends, which, you know, I'm over $1,000. You know, obviously spring, summer is the big time of year, but I'm still making great money. and take good pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are great power tips. Definitely capitalizing on seasonality and demand. So, guys, there is going to be, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some due diligence on your end. We're not just going to hand you everything that you need to know about Airbnb, especially because there may be state and local law. So definitely check out the Airbnb website. Look for that info about your state to get some more info about hosting. And I want you to do something. If you are interested in hosting, if you want to make this semi-passive income, hosting on Airbnb, and remember, it can be a room, it can be the entire house, and I believe you can even just do a couch. There's a lot of different options there. But I want you to do something, and that is to click that link down below in the description. Sign up for Airbnb, use Matt's affiliate link, check it out. Make that decision this year in 2019. And if you are interested in learning more about Airbnb, take it from an expert, take it from Matt, who's had over 150 guests in his home. He has a great rating. He's making great semi-passive income on Airbnb. Let us know. Let us know if you want to level up your skills, especially in Airbnb, and we'll do more live streams and strategy sessions like this. So one more time, thanks to Matt for being here, coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, guys. I appreciate you watching. On your way out, make sure to leave a like on this live stream if you haven't done so already. It shows me that you get value in these live streams, guys. And the content here on the channel gets more people in here, more people on the Driver Mike team. And of course, since we're here on YouTube, it boosts us in YouTube's almighty algorithm. If you haven't done so already, consider leaving a like. So I really do appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.